Mostly sunny today, a top of 23. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, 25. Staying partly cloudy for the weekend and into next week with temps in the mid to low 20s. More news as it happens on 5AA.
Call 5AA now to Talk Adelaide. 8223 0000 1395 5AA.
It's 5:05. Dave Howard in for Peter Godfrey, and of course Pete back mid to late next week. Looking forward to that. Unless I send the boys around to keep them off for a while longer. No, I wouldn't do that. Talking Adelaide, we will talk more Adelaide with you through until 6 on 8223 0000. But right now, we're about to talk New Zealand and all things happening in New Zealand. The man with the know, or in the know, is Selwyn Manning. Good morning, Selwyn. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Dave. How are things over that side of the ditch?
Well, not too bad at all. We had our budget released the night before last, so we will briefly talk about that at the end of this chat. But
Sure thing.
You've got a few things, talking politics. The New Zealand Prime Minister, John Key's, under a bit of a pressure to explain his previous statements that the Government Communications Security Bureau there does not use mass electronic surveillance against the Kiwis.
Yeah, that's right. Now, the Prime Minister over here, John Key, like you said, he previously stated that we do not carry out wholesale collection of metadata. And that was pretty much his statement. And this week's revelations, Dave, they've come from Glenn Greenwald, that internationally known investigative journalist that's very close to Edward Snowden, the whistleblower with all the NSA and all the data collection and surveillance, etc., etc. Now, this week they made public information collected by Edward Snowden and have been referenced by Glenn Greenwald in this new book, Nowhere to Hide. Now, this is big news over in the United States in particular. Yesterday, New Zealand and Aussie time, Greenwald, he was doing interviews, particularly with an organisation called Democracy Now!, where he detailed some of the more important findings, the new findings that are being presented in the book. Now, the findings there that I'm referring to, they suggest that the Kiwi Prime Minister is incorrect, that New Zealanders and Australians have been subject to mass data and communication surveillance. Now, if you look in the New Zealand context, as the New Zealand Herald reported last night, Dave, that one NSA document tells New Zealand and its other Five Eyes intelligence partners. What I'm talking about there with the Five Eyes is Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Britain, and the United States have an agreement pact that they refer to as this Five Eyes. Yeah. And that is basically the signals and data intelligence gathering, as well as the ordinary intelligence kind of operations that go on. Now, what they're saying in this document, and this document is NSA official and NSA kind of information that is coming through here. That's the National Security Agency. To know it all, collect it all, exploit it all, and partner it all. Now, what it's referring to there is the mass collection of data as it's been explained to everybody through this book. Now, the governments have been quiet on it, Dave. The New Zealand Prime Minister, John Key, yesterday, through his office, he said that he would not comment on operational issues. But over here in New Zealand, we've already said, well, you've already commented on the operational issues. You said we do not carry out wholesale collection of metadata. So what basically the call boils down to, he either dismisses the findings of these documents that are said to be official NSA documents that say that kind of data collection does go on, or he explains why his previous statements were at odds to this official information that is being presented to everyone on a worldwide basis. So when it boils down to it, if you look at it in real terms, all of this, what is being claimed is this conversation, for example, would be recorded and put away in a silo, but also all your emails, all your web kind of browsing habits on the internet, anyone you may have chatted with on the internet, just everything, going back, text messages, everything that you've done would be collected and stored in basically big servers, data services, mostly in the United States. But what has been claimed here is that our own governments, Dave, have been complicit in collecting that data, and not only collecting that data for the United States, the security interests, but also sharing it and partnering it amongst those Five Eyes nations. And this is serious stuff, because our own laws prevent wholesale surveillance from going on. What they're referring to here, what Glenn Greenwald, the journalist who's written this book, is referring to, is the non-suspicious collection of data, meaning that, we all accept, I think, in these liberal democracies, that if someone is suspected of being, a terrorist or dodgy in some way, that they will attract the eye of the authorities and be placed under surveillance. And I think the general feeling in most sectors is, okay, well, that's fair enough. But what this is it's quite different, is that it's alleged here that everybody's communications are being collected and under surveillance, so that at some stage, if the authorities wish to, they can pick through anybody to see who they've been talking to, what they've been talking about, are they connected to these groups, etc., etc. So really, if that is the case, over here there's a strong call for the debate to be made, a public debate, particularly because it's election year here in New Zealand, so that the public can basically have a say in what goes on in its own country.
And how's the public reaction going now? Because really, I mean, it's in regard to security, national security and all that sort of thing, but how the public handling the whole story of this sort of coming out, that the surveillance is taking,
Well, it broke yesterday evening, so the public hasn't had a chance to be polled or to really respond in any meaningful way. What happened is back in 2000 in New Zealand. This is back in 2012. New Zealand's GCSB. That's what you referred to before, the Government Communications Security Bureau, kind of like your ASIO and those groups of agencies that you have over there. Now, it was found in New Zealand in 2012, the GCSB was found to have been operating illegal surveillance on New Zealanders. And the New Zealand Prime Minister at that stage, John Key, he said, when he was responsible for the spy agency, and he basically admitted, yes, it's been operating illegally, that it was placing New Zealanders under electronic surveillance when the law actually prevented it from doing so, etc., etc. But his response to that was he had legislation drafted and passed through the New Zealand Parliament that made what those illegal practices were, he made them legal. With making a new law to make it okay. So the backlash in New Zealand was huge. I mean, in the Auckland Town Hall alone, it was spilling out of people going there to protest against, not just a march protest, but going to a public meeting that was held with people, respected in New Zealand society, New Zealand ICT experts, entrepreneurs, politicians, of course, lobby groups, etc. But there was just thousands and thousands of people turned up for that, and it was beamed live on the internet as well. That picked up thousands and thousands. So then other cities all over the country were following in suit. The belief was that the Prime Minister had really picked a hot potato, put it that way, and that the New Zealand public was very intolerant to what was going on. Now, we've had very little spoken about this particular issue since, and that was in the late spring last year. And the new law has come in. It's all gone very quiet, of course. Now these revelations relating to Edward Snowden coming through this book by Glenn Greenwald, they're suggesting that New Zealand has been being played like a fiddle. And if that's the case, our laws are reasonably similar to Australia. There's potentially crossover there. And so I think, highlighting this issue is obviously a very important one.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk more about that, but we'll talk about your budget, which is on the way, and our budget, which we've just got, and we'll compare notes in just a tick, but we'll take a real quick break, and we'll come back to you very shortly, Selwyn.
Okay, Dave. All
right, Selwyn Manning from New Zealand. We'll chat more shortly. Take a quick break. More of your calls after 5:30 through until 6:02. 8223 0000. Selwyn Manning next.
Leon Biner.
Only about 6%, maybe 8%, at a push will ever ride a bike. The Lord Mayor has called in Stephen Yower.
I actually got to say, you are literally making that up.
Stephen,
unprofessional.
Do not throw at me some kind of condescending nonsense. There are lots of things I could reply to that. but my professionalism prevent it.
Talking Adelaide with Leon Biner. Weekday mornings from 9 on 1395 5AA.
Trust your flick man, he's the answer.
Did you know that 1 in 4 Australian homes are affected by termites? In fact, termites may be eating away at your home right now. Call your local Flickman today on 13 14 40 and receive a 25% discount on our pest control packages and 10% off our professional termite inspections. Remember, one flick and they're gone. Call 13 14 40 now.
Remember, one flick and they're gone.
That's 13 14 40.
Hi, I'm Mary Safe from the Amy Gillett Foundation. Tragically, I lost my daughter Amy in a cycling accident, so I know firsthand the importance of safety on our roads. The new, separated bikeway on Frome Street is now open for safer and easier access to the city. All road users have a right to feel safe, but as well as safety, it's about the future of our city and keeping Adelaide moving forward. For more information, go to adelaidecitycouncil.com.
Rule number 1 when you're heading out this weekend. Make sure you've got this number in your phone. 13 22 11. It's the one number for a taxi, and it's the one number for a maxi taxi. If you've got a larger group of friends, get a maxi taxi. 13 22 11.
108.
How many caravan shows do you need to go to?
109.
Before you can consider yourself an expert?
110.
Great Southern RV scoured 110 shows nationally last year, and the 2 brands that stood head and shoulders above the rest? Billabong and Elite Caravans. Great Southern RV is proud to launch in Adelaide with exclusive offers on these industry-leading brands. Who said you need to rough it? GreatSouthernRV.com.au, 1172 South Road, Clovelly Park.
You Installer Kitchens would like to introduce you to another first for the DIY market, our new Quartz Solid Surface Benchtop range. The Quartz range by You Install It is the ultimate finish for your new DIY kitchen. These solid surface benchtops are stylish, simple, and with a price that'll make you smile. Check them out for yourself. Drop into one of our showrooms at Norwood, Lonsdale and South Road, Glandore. You Install It Kitchens, the complete DIY kitchen solution. youinstallerkitchens.com.au.
Ever bought a ticket? Here's why you should. Because time is up. The early bird deadline in the Hospital Home Lottery is midnight tonight. You could be one of 3 early bird winners. Plus, there's the grand prize home at West Beach. Over 3,500 prizes and 1 in 15 chances to win. Just hours remain to secure your tickets. Get in by midnight. Visit homelottery.com.au. That's homelottery.com.au. Licence M12684.
Call 5AA now. 8223 0000 1395 5AA.
It's 588 for 17 past 5. Dave Howard, we're with Selwyn Manning from New Zealand this morning. And Selwyn, we've been talking about your PM over there, but let's talk budget now. When's your budget out?
The budget's read this afternoon, New Zealand time, so around about probably midday Aussie time.
Okay, so
your time, yeah.
We had a few surprises with ours the other night. So what are you expecting with your budget?
Yeah, well, remember it's election year over here in New Zealand, so what we're expecting is pretty much as steady as she goes. No hideous surprises in the budget, unlike some of the more controversial aspects of yours. You know, obviously you guys are going into a new political term. Over here, we've got John Key through the New Zealand Herald. He's saying that one of the things that will come from this budget is a budget surplus, a very small surplus that New Zealand will achieve. It's been running deficit since 2008, and they've been hinting toward modest surpluses pretty much to kick in around about 2016, 2017, but then they rejigged that last year and said, looks like we're going to hit surplus this year, and so the expectation is that there'll be a moderate one, a small one. And John Key is talking up the prospect now that if they were re-elected, they would entertain some more tax cuts and target those for the middle-income New Zealanders. So in that way, it's kind of interesting. They realise that they've got a fight on their hands relating to this election, that the Labour and Green Party bloc in particular is posing quite a worry for this government, even though this government is showing to be, pretty much well supported in the polls compared to the others. The others are, under our system here, the MMP system, are posing quite a threat. So those kind of sweeteners are expected to be hinted at in the budget, but what they're going to deliver, they've got to really work on the structures around who can borrow money to purchase homes and who can't. At the moment, it very much pushes their first income owners, household buyers, those who are wanting to buy a house for the first time, put it that way.
Yeah.
And it's really pushing them out of the market with these minimum kind of amount of deposits that they can put through before they get a house. The government made a move on that about a year ago to try and cool down the housing costs, and the first house buyer sector were being squeezed out as a consequence of that. So they'll have to do something around that, even if they hint toward it. But if you're looking at polls, Dave, what the polls are showing is what should the government do in this budget? And in broad terms, 21% are saying, well, it should increase spending if it's getting a surplus. And then you've got 21% of the same saying they've got to cut the spending. You've got 7% saying don't know, and you've got 50.6% saying maintain current levels. So the sensible, prudent kind of aspect is what's big. Looking at the budget issues, the biggest issue here is help for that first home buyer. That's what I was talking about just then. That's the biggest issue that the population through the polls is saying to the government to do something. And the other thing is that thing in the Kiwi, I think it's the same in Australia. We're very mindful of those that are on on their way up. Those that are on the minimum wage that are trying to get to a better place. Now, one of the priorities, the second biggest priority, is increasing the minimum wage here. So those kind of things. The polls, how they're shaping up, they're very keyed into this particular budget. The government goes into this budget under pressure because it was sinking under the Roy Morgan poll last week. It showed it down to only 42% support for the Nationals here in government, whereas there was 46, 47 around there for the Labor Green bloc. So they were looking at, getting a bit of a caning compared, on the basis of the Roy Morgan. Here there's an Ipso poll that's basically the Fairfax poll over here, and it's showing quite the opposite. It's saying that 47.6% support is going to the Nationals. So that's a little bit of a lift going into this budget, and if this latest poll is accurate, it's showing that the government is pretty sound as far as its ride toward the election. If it delivers a sensible, prudent budget, one that's not going to scare the horses, then it looks like it's got a pretty good campaign platform to work from. So that's how we're looking at it.
Yeah, well, it sounds like mellow yellow to me.
Yeah, it is, but compared to you guys, you've got Joe Hockey out there grinding it a bit, ready to race and cut and slash from what we're hearing.
Well, that's the thing. Education and health's one big thing, but also, it's just the small things. There's different things throughout the budget that do make sense, and also, on the other hand, like I've been mentioning the Restart program, which is encouraging employers to hire people over 50, which is fantastic. They're going to receive that $10,000 handout, but there's also cons to that as well. The pros and cons to everything. And, are employers just going to hire these people, grab the money and keep them for the allocated term, then get rid of them? The other thing is, fuel excise increase, adding 3 cents a litre to the petrol, the reductions in family tax benefits.
So that would hurt, wouldn't it? The reduction in the family.
Yeah, and it hurts the younger family, or the low income people who have young families, households. Even with the mums going back to work and things like that, you've got the cost of childcare and different things like that. But even throwing $7, and the one thing that's going to be opposed is the $7 GP co-payment. That's one thing that they've noted that they're going to oppose. What was the other thing? Pensions. I think they're going to oppose any change to that. The welfare, there's people as far as getting people off of welfare and back into work, they're reassessing the disability pension, anyone under 35, looking to get them back into the workforce.
A lot of these things are kind of similar to what the Nationals went through over here. There's a similar kind of government to your coalition. Obviously it's probably more aligned to the Liberal side of your coalition than the Nationals itself over in Australia.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kind of measures, the Nationals hear about probably 3 years ago, really kicked in really hard. And middle New Zealand, I guess the Nationals here, they don't preoccupy themselves too much with the beneficiaries and what's happening there, apart from trying to actually get the costs down. That's not where they get their votes. And so the beneficiaries have been really, really, really whacked, particularly in, invalids benefits, sickness benefits and things like that. The government the Nationals brought in a new category of exclusion, basically, that said, well, if you're fit for work, but, you've got these problems, well, then you're not going to be drawing this benefit. So off you go.
Yeah.
Same in the unemployment. And they've turned people out of the being able to receive a benefit. So a lot of people that vote for the Nationals here saying, oh, that's great, but then middle New Zealand is starting to hurt too, like we're talking about here. And that's like with the, changes in the, as the population rises, the impact on the tertiary and costs, and also the health costs start to increase, with the government not keeping up pace with that increase in the population base formulas, if you like, starts to hurt the access to hospitals, like what we were talking about. The price of housing, particularly in Auckland and Christchurch here in New Zealand, is huge, and the government's measures, they've been behind the eight ball, really, to be fair, in being able to address that impact on, one, the economy and also on households. So it's not. So there is similarities. It seems what we're getting here, because it's election year, you're getting a softening, like we're indicating in our talk just before, whereas you guys are going in, to more the hard edge, I guess, of what you're getting pushed on you at the moment.
Yeah, well, they're looking at obviously working on getting everything back on the road to recovery, but then you've got different things throughout the budget that they're taking from one hand and they're actually spending in another hand, where they should be, if they want to pay off the debt, well, basically let's pay off the debt and get on with it. But they're not really. They're saving money all over the place. They're cutting 16,500 public servants and abolishing government bodies that, have got those smaller bureaucratic programs, and there's a lot of government bodies we can get rid of. But
Wellington here, our capital, was almost turned into a ghost town with that same kind of thing, cutting back the public service. What the Nationals did is they put their own people in advisory positions outside of the public service on advisory boards to replace them, so that they get the message they want, but not in a battle with the public service. All of those. It was quite a fundamental change. Interesting kind of way. I think at the end of the day, what it's done is it's relating to the economy here in New Zealand. I'm not saying it's going to be the same experience in Aussie, but what we've found here is the government debt had gone up from in 2008 when the Nationals came in, was at 10.4 billion. Well, now it's over 54 billion. That's 442 increase in government debt at the time when they've been slashing and burning, and the public expecting cuts to those types of budgets. So if we ran our households like that, we'd be scratching our head and looking for a tent to live in. We wouldn't be able to sustain it. So there's real problems about some of the ways that it's been governed.
All right, mate. Well, once again, always a pleasure to speak to you, and time flies when I speak to you. So no doubt we'll catch up with you again next week, and we'll find out the final story after the budget in your end.
Okay, mate.
Good on you. Thanks, Selwyn. Selwyn Manning from New Zealand, and we'll talk to Selwyn again next week. And staying on the way next with 5AA News.
Electricity costs are going through the roof, but Solar Heart is here to free you. Switch to Solar Heart.